So I thought I would start off looking at the safety and inhibitor switches on a very basic level. We're going to start off and have a look at something like a seat inhibitor switch. So this, the basic function of this is that you don't want the lawnmower to start up while you have your feet under the deck where the the old sharp spinny blades are. You don't want to be in that position, and the manufacturers certainly don't want to have those lawsuits. So they fit an inhibitor switch, a seat inhibitor switch, so that you have to be sat on it before you can start the vehicle, therefore getting your tootsies out of the way. This is what our previous basic circuit looked like. So this is our basic circuit. I'm not going to go through it. You have a look at the previous video if you want to have a look at that. Now you can see up here, if you watch this bit here, we are going to add a very simple switch into this circuit. This is what we're going to add. So there you go, you can see our seat switch. As you can tell, we are going to have power coming up to here. When the driver turns that ignition key, the power will and the current will flow down through to here, and it won't go anywhere until the driver sits on the seat. As soon as the driver sits on the seat, that contact will be made, the current will be able to flow down through to the ignition switch terminal on that solenoid. It will activate the solenoid, power can flow to the starter motor, and it will work the same way as the basic circuit does. So that's basically how a very simple inhibitor switch works. Now we can then take that a little bit more complicated, or we can take it one step further, I should say, and we can have a look at a clutch inhibitor switch or a clutch safety switch. Now a lot of manufacturers use this so that the driver of the vehicle has to be sat in the vehicle, and as well as being sat on the vehicle, they put their foot on the clutch. That means if the vehicle has been left in gear, then it is not going to drive away when you crank the engine. Diesel engines in particular can be pretty bad for that. It also makes sure that the driver has to be sat in it, because it's awfully hard to operate the clutch pedal if you're stood outside of the vehicle. So here is our clutch, our seat switch. And what we're going to do is we're going to swap out that seat switch. Just watch that seat switch there. And you now see that we have swapped it with a relay. So rather than having an actual switch or the power running all the way down to the clutch and back up to, or back along down to the starter motor, we're now using a relay. So what we're looking for here is that when the driver operates the ignition to the crank, it cannot start until the driver puts their foot on the clutch. We can see here we've got power running up to the relay, and that relay is not going to get energized until we put our foot down on the clutch. Once that switch closes, current can flow through down to the earth, back up to the battery, and then we'll find that this relay is energized. As soon as that relay is energized, we then allow current to flow through the relay down through here into that ignition switch terminal that's on the solenoid, and then, as previously explained, the solenoid closes the contacts and current flows through the starter motor. So very simply, very easy way of making sure that we don't have to run lots of big cables all over the place to different inhibitor switches. Now we are going to also have a look at an automatic version. So the previous one was obviously with clutches. That has to be done in a manual. In an automatic it is slightly different, because in an automatic we don't have a clutch. So in this case, rather than using a clutch switch, a simple open shut switch, we are going to use this. Now you can see that up here we now have our auto trans And our auto trans can be put into a variety of different positions. Now yours may have more positions on top of that. That's okay. I've just gone for a simple one. So you can see here that when you have, we've still got the basic relay, the same as we had before, with the clutch operating the same way, only this time that relay will only get energized if we have power coming through, or if we have the vehicle, in the park position, or if we have the vehicle in the neutral position. If the vehicle is in either of those, then you will find that then we will energize that relay, which will then allow the power to come through down to the starter motor as previously explained. Now you might find that that power comes off of the ignition switch or off of the accessories maybe, rather than being what looks like this one powered all the time. But again, as I said, this is just a generic look just to get the idea as to how this works. So that's inhibitor switches. Now this isn't the be all or end all of inhibitor switches. You've got all sorts of different types, as well as the seat, the clutch, and the neutral switch for the auto trans, or the park switch for the auto trans. We can also have things like seat belts. We can have, you can build in all sorts of weird and wonderful things from some of the manufacturers. Also depends on what you drive to. You can have one that operates when you put your foot on the brake, when you have your foot down and off on the accelerator. You could have just a hold button, like a dead man switch. Things like that you have in trains. Tractors can have just a push button or a push on the floor. And yeah, there's all sorts of different types that are out there. So they're there for safety. They're there to make sure that we cannot operate the engine or start the vehicle up unless we are either in the vehicle or the vehicle is in a safe condition for us to be able to start it.